Happy Wednesday, action fans. Welcome back to another episode of Action Movie Anatomy, where we're talking Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang. Is this the greatest action comedy of all time? I don't know. Let's find out.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! It's always so weird doing stuff without, like,
because you have like your mirror.
I just got my mirror.
Yeah.
And then, but it's okay. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I'm so excited,
Dude.
We were just in New York.
Yes, we were. I know. We were drunkenly. We're standing on the corner in New York, outside of a bar, being like, "You wanna come on my show? I love to come on your show."
I love this movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. You want to talk about the Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
I know.
The only time that wasn't a line. You know what I mean? Like, the only time someone's saying drunk outside of a bar, kiss, bang, bang, that wasn't...
Just two dudes just having a great conversation about movies.
Wasn't profiteering of any kind. It wasn't trying to proposition or profiteer.
Guys, welcome back to Action Movie Anatomy. How you doing today? You know who I am. I'm Andrew Ghai. This is my good friend, COY JANDRAEU.
How we doing? I'm so excited, man. This is like one of my favorite shows to do, and probably tied for first my favorite comedy of all time.
My favorite thing about having you on the show is if it's a movie that you've recommended, which it always is. You know, it's what we try to do when we have guests on. Is I could not say anything for an hour.
Yeah,
and
I
you
mean,
could just talk.
I could recite most of this movie if they wanted to play by play. I could talk about the legacy of this movie. I could talk about how it shifted the environment of film forever, and I could talk about how it single-handedly revitalized one of the biggest movie stars in the world right now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is one of the biggest turns in Robert Downey's career, but we'll get to all that in just a minute. Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the show. I'm Andrew. This is COY. This is Action Movie Anatomy. We cover action movies on this show on the Popcorn Talk Network, the network dedicated to talking movies and pop culture by the bucket full. And yeah, this is an interesting one because Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a movie that I'd kind of forgotten that I'd watched. I had a feeling that I had seen it, but I think I saw it too young. You know,
it's a dense movie.
When it came out in 2005, I hadn't graduated high school yet. I didn't really know a lot about Robert Downey Jr. at the time, and Val Kilmer to me was the saint. Val Kilmer was the star in this movie. He was the person I was looking out for. What made you want to cover this on the show today, man?
So this is one of those movies that it's and this is gonna sound harsh, but this is one of those movies that I judge friendships and relationships by. So
fair.
It is literally like we sit down, we watch this movie. If you don't laugh, we probably won't be getting texts.
Yeah,
like it's one of those things where it's really a barometer of humanity. So if you like this movie, we're probably gonna be great friends. If you're neutral at this movie, maybe we'll find a different thing to agree on. But movies, if you don't like this movie, there's probably something like a separate from us. So this is one of my like litmus test movies, man. I'm like, this is the bar. So between
I loved it. I swear to God, I loved it.
But between this and In Bruges, I really when I'm going into a more serious relationship or when I've been friends with someone for a long time, I kind of put these movies on and set the bar where I feel about them.
Because there's something so like high school jokes about Shane Black's writing, and there's also something like genius level, like top of the line intellect jokes from Shane Black's writing, and I love In Bruges. So when we cover that, you got to come back on because
100%.
I could just talk about that movie
I
all
quote
day,
it all the
dude.
time, and it's one of those movies that the quotes don't sound like quotes, so I just sound like a psychopath.
Yeah,
like it's one of those movies where it's like, what is wrong with you?
Fucking elephants.
And what?
What'd you call me?
Actually, he knows karate. Like there's so many moments that are really like quippy in this, much like In Bruges. Like this is definitely my sense of humor, but it's also one of the most quotable movies in the most specific of ways. Like I yell like crazy monkey from the future only says ficus all the time, and people are like, what is wrong with you?
I was just trying to think of how many times I could say badly on the show, but then it's just a word that we all use all the time, so I don't think it would actually work.
It's an adverb.
It's an adverb. Vanish. All right, let's do a couple.
But even beyond the writing, this movie's directing is tight. The movie's action is incredible. It's got twists that don't get revealed early on. You actually are looking at it. And I discovered it in the weirdest way, which is one of my favorite things about it, is I grew up with Lethal Weapon. Like, Lethal Weapon is my franchise.
Yeah, it is.
If there weren't Marvel movies, you'd see me on the internet just as much, but talking about 4 films, and that's Lethal Weapon. Fortunately for me, a 5th is coming, according to Hollywood Reporter. Very excited. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I was waiting for forever because it was Shane Black's directorial debut, and my entire childhood I had a crush on Shannyn Sossamon, and she's in one scene in this movie. So when she's the girl with the pink hair.
Oh, she is.
That's Shannyn.
That's it. I was gonna Google who's the girl in the pink hair, but then I was like, I'm not watching the movie, and I needed to watch the movie. That
A
was
Knight's
her?
Tale Shannyn Sossamon.
Oh my God,
So
I
when
love
she was
her.
cast, I was similarly like, to me, Robert Downey Jr. was that guy from a few 80s movies, and he was on Ally McBeal. He wasn't like a big part of my life, but Shannyn Sossamon was.
Oh,
and
yes,
Val
she
Kilmer was.
Yes, he
so
was.
it was really cool to see this movie and be like, do I have a new sense of humor? Like, it just changed everything. So this movie's one of those giant before and afters.
This movie's actually just straight up hilarious. It really is. So we're going to get into that in just a second. Let's do a couple shout outs first. Guys, we got a Patreon, patreon.com/Team Action. You can go and support us there. We actually were just in New York. Coy was there as well. We're going to be talking Schmodown a little bit today. I want to kind of pick your brain about being a manager and kind of like, I was actually just talking to Steph Sabra outside, and I was asking her when she's going to join the Schmodown, because not only do we always need more females, but we also need great personalities to join, and I think Steph is phenomenal. And she was like, it's like a psychotic like cult. And I was like, it's a cult that will love you.
It's all love.
That's the best kind of cult to be in.
Isn't that what all cults say? Even sing it out loud. It's like, it's just about love and being one with people like you. It's just join us.
Just join us. It's totally cool. Totally cool. But yeah, so check out our Patreon. We're going to be doing a behind the scenes reaction there of both the matches. Do you have a Patreon?
I do. I just started it. It's been active for 2 weeks, and I start doing all the stuff February 1st because I was traveling. And I have my own YouTube now. I just started. And
it's doing really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
January 2nd, a lot of things happened that caused a YouTube to need to exist. So January 2nd p.m., a YouTube was started, and you guys have been incredible, and a lot of people in the chat like a lot of the names I see here have been inactive in my own YouTube. Dude. Like, the community that you guys are is absolutely incredible. And I have literally a 3-hour live stream I'm going to do tonight, because really? I haven't covered anything since UFC. So I want to cover the Conor fight. I want to cover Watchmen 2 not happening. I saw The Gentleman and Bad Boys. Literally, like, there's a gamut of news.
What is your YouTube?
Just my name, @COY JANDRAEU. So
okay.
COYJANDREAU if you're for some reason listening and not watching. Yeah, my YouTube, just my name. And I kind of, the show's called Coy's Comics, Cinema, and Curls. English is silly, because cinema should have a
and Curls is sick because he works out.
And curls, bro. Because I want to talk fitness and UFC and stuff.
We were in New York talking about how it was hard not to work out for a couple days. Not a big deal. It was just like, it's so hard not to work out. He's like, it's so hard.
We had the broiest conversation in a lunchroom at a hotel
with William Bibiani and Brendan Meyer, who were looking at us like, these guys are psychopaths.
Literally, like, you've got headphones on. And I was like, yeah, bro, gotta get a run later. And they're just sitting there like, we're gonna study movies, and these psychopaths are gonna be getting games.
That's why we're good at it, and they.
That's why we are on the other side of the storylines.
Yes, we are the entertainers. So a couple new patrons to shout out. We got Hannah K. Megan and Moises Claudio. Moises, we actually met you in New York, and if it's Moses and it's not Moises, then I'm sorry, but there's an I in there, so I have to say it. So big salute to you guys. Thank you so much for your patronage. Let's get into the show. Let's get into the rules. Rule number 1 of Action Movie Anatomy: the hero always plays by their own rules. Now, I want to talk to you about this because there are a lot of times in movies where you have the dual heroship, even in movies like The Rock. Is that what this is, or is Robert Downey just straight up?
I think 100% plays by his own rules. This movie breaks the fourth wall. This movie stops, pauses, and looks at you.
Yep.
So if there's ever a movie to break its own rules and to make its own rules, it's this one. And I feel like both Val Kilmer and Downey Jr., especially in the post-credit scene or like the mid-credit scene, effectively shape that the narrative's been theirs. They thank the audience for cleaning up their popcorn. Like, this is a movie defined by making its own rules.
Yeah, and they totally balance each other out. Right? Like, they have to do that because there's a lot of time there where Downey's definitely not the smartest guy in the room. Kilmer is.
100%.
And at the end of it, Downey's kind of he's almost like the smartest guy in the room just by necessity.
It also exists in our world. This movie also, like, there's a whole subplot about Colin Farrell. Like, this movie also makes its own rules because it exists within us, which is fascinating.
The acting side of it, even the audition in the beginning, I was just like, this is actually real. Like, this is kind of how it really goes.
He's on his knees and he's crying. It's just, this to me does all the things, and no disrespect to Barry, but this does all the things that Barry does, but does a little better. Like, to me, this is a little more winky, a little more tongue-in-cheek, a little more like inside baseball, but it's more welcoming. Yeah. Like, Entourage, love it or hate it, landed this weird line where it's like, you drive down Hollywood Boulevard, and sometimes I think about Entourage, and that show's been off for 10 years.
I still do. Yes,
still.
100%.
And Shane Black, to me, is the best director and writer for that, because there is not a single time I take the 405 and I look at that building and I go, that's the building she jumped off of in Lethal Weapon.
Right.
Like, to this day. So, and that was out in 87. I wasn't even alive yet, and I think about that.
It's because the way that he writes things, the way that he paints stuff, and, you know, the imagery that he sets up, it's just something about it sticks with you without being too heavy-handed. There's
and
not
that's
because
the
of the filters and the lighting. It's because there's just something impactful. Paul Denuzio here in the super chat actually donates $2. He says, Coy is one of the best guests on AMA in history. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, Paul.
Couldn't agree more.
And for that, I will give you some insight into Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. The opening of that movie is actually at Shane Black's old house, and this is gonna sound like a name drop, and I'm so sorry because I get called out on this all the time. But I want to give credit to Shane Black as a writer, because he is brilliant in person and he talks unlike these characters, but every so often you see a glimmer of one of his characters. So he's one of those writers that is able to distinguish his own voice from the voice of the characters, and he can find it in conversation.
Yeah, I know. I saw that the mansion scene was filmed at his house, and I was just like, well, how nice for you to save money on your budget. We'll just film it in my living room.
Dude, this movie made like $4.
I know.
So they needed to save the budget.
Honestly, I heard that and I was like, well, good on you, Shane. Well, it's funny because Shane Black has Shane Blackisms. It has become a real thing that people can look at scripts and go, that's a Shane Blackism, or that is where that comes from. And it's so true when you go and you look at the movies that he's written, which we'll obviously talk about. The guy is a genius, and I think he might be the greatest action comedy writer, period. Even though it's really just on the shoulders of a couple that he's directed, and then obviously the Lethal Weapon franchise, but that's all you need. Kiss Kiss, Nice Guys, and Lethal Weapon, what the hell else you want, you know?
I mean, that's the cornerstones of action comedy.
Right.
So if you own 3 of the 4 corners, you don't need a high number. Like, he's a quality over quantity guy.
Yes.
Because I think he's had one foible, and I think that was a recent one, and I think there was a lot of reasons for it.
And we'll talk about that, because you have a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, and so my apology for name dropping is I know Shane a bit, so if I mention it in like shorthand, is because because I don't want to seem like I'm speaking out of school, but I'm also speaking in the way
I call
of
him S Money. So if you hear me say S Money,
me and SB chilling after this, go hit him up, talk about that Doc Savage. No, but I think Shane is really particular. A lot of times when you hear Aaron Sorkin dialogue, it comes from other Aaron Sorkin dialogue, whereas Shane is able to be his same tone, but he makes new stuff.
He does.
Like, the other guys is clearly a Shane Black film, but at no point did they sound like Riggs or Murtaugh. So that's what I want to give credit to, is like when you talk to Shane in person, there's not a single moment of quippy, speedy Downey Jr.-ness, but every so often he'll say a sentence and you're like, goddamn genius. Like you'll see it come out. Or like, what movie's that gonna be in? Like, you know what I mean? So like, I think that it's really hard to find writers that aren't as big and bold in person, whereas he's just a dude. Like, he's just a chill guy.
And I think that's what he really kind of captures, and this is such a weird thing to say, but it's kind of like dude humor.
Yeah.
Like when you're hanging out with your buddies, everything's hilarious and it's not really that funny, but there's something about the way it's said and when it's said, it's that he perfectly captures. So rule number 2, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people, beings, creatures, dinosaurs in the room. This is kind of interesting, because who's the true villain of this movie in your mind?
I would say the entire like nefarious underbelly. Like, there's a whole like subplot of,
it's not just the guy.
No.
What's his name? Dexter?
Yeah,
or whatever.
it's not just
him, and it's not just the dad or
right.
it's a combination.
It's also kind of the Hollywood system. If you want to look at the macro, like the way they abuse the people in the movie, and this is coming from being in LA, where I'm like, man, they treat actors like crap. There's something to the infrastructure of LA, plus the Dexter character, plus the father character. Like, even the that poor character that gets like knocked off the fucking balcony and dies. Like, there's something to the Hollywood extreme where he's like driven to drink because he can't get hired by anyone else.
Well, I was like, this movie came directly after Downey got out of prison. You're like, yeah, he woke up in a Wonder Woman outfit,
and then this guy's in a robot outfit. And I'm like, oh, you're like, oh, reflecting life. Like, what a beautiful.
Downey's like looking at the script, he's like, fuck, all
damn
right,
it, Shane. Okay,
just ignore it. I need this movie.
And every one of those parties is a Hollywood party.
Oh yeah.
Like, every time I go to a Hollywood party, I think of the scene where he's like, yeah, I invented dice. Oh, is that it? Like, literally that. I've also used like those lines at parties to see if anyone got the reference. Or dude, like Native American Joe Pesci.
Bobby Gucci is the greatest. You'll hear him say something and you'll be like, it's not true because I know. But no one else in this room could ever deny that you invented dice or you started the hula hoop, whatever it is.
He goes into Finstock mode or he goes into Gucci mode. Like, there's just so many methods.
So much conviction.
Yeah.
It's so believable.
But that's a Hollywood parties. There's always that guy that leans into the brand.
And also the very end when he's like leaving and he like talks to the girl. She's like, oh yeah, you're the guy that was getting his ass kicked earlier. And you're like... Thanks for the help.
Like, we've all been to those parties. Yeah. Like, it's a very, and that's again that weird LA thing where you're like, it is as weird as it looks in the movies.
It is.
It's a weird place.
Yeah.
And it will chew you up and eat you alive like it does in this film.
It really will, especially if you're trying to. Nah, we don't need to get into the whole philosophy of how to survive LA. Rule number 3:
don't do drugs.
The movie's driven by a police, military, or a political figure. I mean, not really. No, not at all. I mean, he's an actor, and then he's got a PI with him, so it breaks that rule. And rule number 4: the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. Is there an explosion in this movie? Is a car blow up? Is there a blow up in the film?
The scene where they're shooting on the bridge, like with the casket. Is there an explosion in that scene?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's kept.
There's an explosion in Val Kilmer's pants.
Yes!
Yes, that is true. With the Derringer, I love that. And the line that comes after it is pretty phenomenal as well. So we'll say it meets the rules.
Okay, I'm into it. Because there's no like literal explosion, but I also kind of like the realism of that. Because this is like a pulpy noir. And I feel like if they added an explosion for like the 90s action sensibility, it would have ripped us right out. Whereas instead, the gunshots actually hit like gunshots. Like, there's an extreme moment, but it's not like bad guys walking away as like it explodes behind them. Like,
I actually really like when gunshots hit like gunshots.
Yeah.
With the slow bleed coming out. It's not just like an explosion of blood. And I mean, it depends on the bullet caliber. And in this movie, there's no 50 cals.
everyone's got handguns.
Yes,
and
exactly.
everything feels like a pulpy noir.
Yeah, I know. Even the when he does it with the silencer.
Yeah.
With Shannyn Sossamon.
Yeah.
To avenge her. That's a great scene.
The way Shane uses noir pulp is like he loves the dime store novels. Like that's his obsession in real life. So he actually did a bunch of Iron Man 3 like alternate material that were pulpy. So there's a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man 3 that looks like a dime store novel that reminded me of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Really?
There's a bunch of alt stuff because that's his wheelhouse. So I was glad the studio, like, they let him make the movie all the way. Like, this didn't feel like it had any studio interference.
No.
This was not a marketable film, which is why it opened at number 36.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's also kind of how I felt about The Nice Guys. And I know The Nice Guys did a little bit better, but The Nice Guys did not. I mean, this is tough because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has so much other stuff going on. But the Brad Pitt-Leo relationship in that is phenomenal, but I still think that the Gosling-Crowe one far surpasses it. There's just so much more going on and so many great moments. Like, I still love The Nice Guys when he's like begging him, telling stories like, oh, everyone's calling you the donut shop guy. The donut shop. He's like, what's that all about? And then he's just passed out on the diving board like 30 seconds later.
To me, no one writes bromance like Shane Black.
No.
Like, Riggs and Murtaugh are an unlikely duo that is still replicated today. Like, you still see people writing that trope. And to me, The Nice Guys was like, he didn't lean on that. Like, they weren't that different in age. They weren't that different in responsibility. And then in this film, you've got like two people that hate each other and you can still feel the love there. So three very different type of romances that all land beautifully.
Well, because we all have that friend, right?
Oh, God,
it's
yeah.
fucking Steve.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
God. You know, yeah, he's coming. It's the Super Bowl, baby. Jack will be there, Coy will be there, and fucking Steve will be there.
And know we're that friend to so many people. Like,
of course I am.
When we were talking with Bibbs and the kid, we were that friend. You know what I mean? We were like, yeah,
God,
so
those guys
are you doing
suck.
Justin back today, bro? Like, it's totally, we're that guy in that scenario.
All right, we got to get into the show, and we got to get into the thesis statement, because I actually have one about what you just said, and then you have one that I think is fascinating. So we're going to talk thesis statement, fist pump. We're also going to talk Schmodown a little bit, and then career-defining role for Robert Downey Jr. is clearly Iron Man, but I want to talk a little bit about his acting, his actual acting, because I think this is some of the best acting he's ever done in his career. And then I also want to talk about Shane Black because of Predator and kind of its lack of success. So let's get into thesis statement. That's your biggest, boldest thought about the film. If you were at one of these Hollywood parties and this party was celebrating Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and you had the microphone for one statement, one sentence, this is what you would say. And I'm going to say mine first because I want to go deeper into yours. But mine is that Shane Black is just the greatest bromance writer of all time. That's literally what it was. You said that no one writes it like him. I'm like, well, that's pretty close to what exactly mine is. And it's just based off the three. It really is. I mean, I actually love Iron Man 3, and I love what Ben Kingsley does in that movie. But personally, The Nice Guys is my favorite. It really is. I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is just as good.
Yeah.
But I think there's just something about The Nice Guys. Maybe it's because of how much I love Gosling and Crowe and how just straight up hilarious that movie is. Because that movie just feels like a straight comedy.
Yeah.
With some action. Whereas this actually feels like a movie that I thought Kilmer died. I thought Downey died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was okay with it. Whereas, like, at the end of The Nice Guys, if you kill Gosling, you kill a little girl's dad.
Right.
And that's not really that funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the age I think you hit, Nice Guys. Like, I think that's a factor in this.
100%.
For us, like 2005 we were a lot younger. I think I was a junior in high school. I think we both graduated.
Yeah.
So I was just on the wrong side of understanding adults. Like, just on the wrong side.
And imagine if you'd already been in LA for as long as we had, and then Kiss Kiss
if this came out or 5 years ago.
This might be my favorite movie ever.
And I had this poster on my wall from 2005 on, so even then I loved it.
Okay.
It's just the more I watch it, the more it makes sense to me.
And now the more time you spent in the business.
It's cartoonish. It's prophetic.
It really
and so
really
therefore, I think
is.
The Nice Guys might be because of when you saw it. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I think that's totally fair. And I also saw it with Ben, so I had a bro with me, and we
Right.
could laugh at stupid shit throughout. So I think it's also because if I watched this with you, maybe this would be my favorite. You
Right,
know?
I'd be yelling all sorts of like very obscure specific shit about it. Like,
yes. And then I think about like Lethal Weapon 4, which is like one of the ones I grew up on, and like just Pesci in that movie and how annoying Pesci is in 3 and 4.
Chris Rock is Butters.
Chris Rock, it's like he is Butters. That's the best thing I've ever heard. Oh my god.
Like the Lethal Weapon franchise means so much to me, and anytime someone even gives me like a glimmer of talking about it, I'm like, no, we're gonna talk about Lethal Weapon. Like the fact that Lethal Weapon 5 was this week and I wasn't on my YouTube channel, like I'm gonna 3 hours on Lethal Weapon. Y'all ain't even ready. But I think it's really interesting that Shane Black has been culturally relevant for 30 years.
Yeah.
Like 87 was Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
absurd.
I mean, my dog is just, Snickers is here in the studio. He's just walking around. So your thesis is straight crazy.
My thesis is...
And I want to hear it.
It's going to be like, oh no, I can't be on the internet for a week. In my opinion, because of this film, Mel Gibson is responsible for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is a film. Look at Mel Gibson's archetype that Robert Downey Jr. plays. The leather jacket, smoking, wise ass, does all of the things.
Okay.
Mel Gibson, Downey Jr., very good friends in real life. They've both stood up for each other in their times of darkness. Downey Jr. has literally called out for people to apologize, forgive Mel. And Mel, back in the 90s, had people saying, like, forgive Downey Jr. They both used their award show speeches to stand up for each other. And if you look at the timeline, Air America came out like in the 90s before a lot of the Downey Jr. stuff. I guarantee that Shane Black, who's good friends with Mel, the Downey Jr. casting of this was in part because of Mel Gibson. And without Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, we would not have had a single bit of the Iron Man universe.
And is that because you think...
Mel Gibson put up insurance money so they'd hire like Downey Jr. I've heard it was either this or something around this time. Because no one would like work with a certain amount, no one would work with these people.
And you're saying essentially if Robert Downey never got this movie, he would have never got Iron Man. And then if someone else played Iron Man, the MCU would have never gotten where it went. It'd be a different MCU. It would be a very different MCU. Because if Tom Cruise did it, it'd be a Tom Cruise focused film. It wouldn't be able to expand to the MCU. So I'm saying if Mel Gibson hadn't alley-ooped Downey Jr. into getting Kiss Kiss Bang Bang because of what he was going through at the time, which if you watch any interview with Robert Downey Jr., it's one of the most insightful things to see him like beautifully handle. He owns his darkness and he owns what he went through and he owns like all those things and like his Joe Rogan interview he just had, like it's really beautiful to see him turn addiction into like martial art addiction. Like he's a giant UFC fan, which is so cool. Well, that's the thing is, and I don't want to cut you off for more than 2 seconds here, but yeah, people that with addictions, we just need to be addicted to something else.
Right.
We really do.
If you have an addictive personality, find the healthiest addiction.
Yes.
In the live chat, I see what you're saying about X-Men and Blade. I'm not saying Marvel films. I'm saying the MCU.
Yeah.
I think we'd have a swath of Marvel films, but I think the cornerstone of the MCU is Jon Favreau's Iron Man.
100%.
Which I don't think we would have had without Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I don't know if we'd have Downey in it without Mel Gibson. So the most hated man in Hollywood might be the reason the biggest cinematic franchise of all time exists.
I can't disagree with you.
It's just fascinating, the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're following this trail of breadcrumbs, and it is speculation, but it also there is evidence there to support the fact that like no one wanted to work with Robert Downey. We'll get into that when we get into production development, and it was really just kind of the basis that he had a friend in Shane Black that kind of hired him and gave him a chance, and Joel Silver, like they gave him a chance. They gave him an audition. They didn't want to even book him. They just gave him the audition. So I think that's crazy. Would I have ever put it together on my own? 100% no. Can I see the breadcrumbs and can I agree with you? I think so, man. And
also look at that bromance.
Yes.
We're talking about bromances. Look at the inherent bromance of Downey Jr. standing up for Mel when he needed it and Mel standing up for Downey Jr. when he needed it. Look at like the behind the scenes bromance between the two of them causing this new bromance, which led to the MCU.
It sucks because I still kind of love Mel Gibson.
Oh, I love Mel Gibson, the actor, but Mel Gibson, the person, is so hard.
Garbage.
It's even hard to say.
Yes.
Like, I feel like when I say the name Mel Gibson, I'm
listen,
like,
hold on, listen.
Caveat.
Let me finish. Yes,
there's an asterisk. Like I need a little sign to be like, I'm going to talk about Mel Gibson. Asterisk. I know he said horrible and did horrible things.
Well, because when Bloodfather or whatever the hell that movie came out, I was like, I'm watching that.
It's Lethal Weapon 5.
It really is.
It's Riggs when he lost Murtaugh and he goes too far over the edge.
He lost everything.
And he just loses his mind.
There we go.
Look if you have time after this interview,
I'd watch that movie.
Look up the interviews with them talking about the other. Look at there's literally award show presentations where they're asking for the forgiveness of their bro. So to me, that is how the MCU happened. And it's fascinating because if you ask anyone what they think of Mel Gibson in this town, it's not going to come out great. But then you go to the box office and you're like, oh, look at the MCU.
But then they still put him in movies like Daddy's Home 2 and stuff. So it's like everyone kind of acknowledges it, but they want to actually say
not all the way.
Yeah, not all the way.
And I don't know Shane Black's and Mel's relationship. I just know that to me the breadcrumbs are right there because of all the public support they have for each other, and because to me Downey's playing a Riggs type character. I could easily see Mel in that role instead of.
Well, they wanted to put in people like Benicio del Toro,
who I love, but it wouldn't have been the same.
Same. Hugh Grant. Was another one, which I think is very odd. And then the third person I know is here. It's right here at the top. Johnny Knoxville. So that's such an indicator of what time we're living in. Budget level, and then who was famous at the time. To put Johnny Knoxville in this movie would be crazy if, let's say, he actually pulled it off. He would have a very different career as a legitimate actor, because you have to have acting chops to play Downey's role.
Oh my God, he's incredible.
He's very, very
and
good. And
also, like Knoxville, I could see for some of the archetypes in this film, but not all of them. So I can see why his name came up. I can see why all three of these names came up. But to me, no one except for the two we were talking about, Mel and Downey, could have played this role.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, man. So those are our thesis statement, guys. Let us know what yours are down below in the comment section. We're going to move right along into fist pump moment. That's the moment when you're watching this movie, you look around, you're like, this is awesome. Are you seeing this? Like, I got to watch the rest of this movie. I got to stop. I got to call my friend. I got to text Coy. Dude, you're so right. I'm so glad we're watching this movie.
You did.
I did. I texted you. I go, 100%. We're covering Kiss Kiss. No questions. I'm so excited. I'll see you Wednesday. And that was it. And I'll tell you, I texted you actually. I can't remember exactly when I texted you, but I remember the moment that I fist pumped was, I actually think I texted you right after Sossamon got killed.
Yeah.
Because he has a really big moment there in the last shot where he kind of like grits his teeth. He's like mad and you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
And then he freaks out because he just killed someone. And I was like, this movie is really good.
Yeah.
This is not just like, I was waiting for maybe like the legs to fall out from underneath it, because so many people like you and I say Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is phenomenal, but then there's the general populace, they don't ever talk about this movie,
Which is insane.
which is absolutely bizarre to me. But it was at the end when you've got Downey getting his balls tased or whatever, electrocuted, and his screaming is very believable. It's very good acting, and Kilmer's just egging this guy on, and so let me like the experience of this is. One of these guys is going to die at the end of the movie in my mind. And I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. So in this moment, I'm like, oh shit, this is it. This is it. Is it going to be Kilmer? What's going to happen? How are they going to get out of this? And he's screaming. It's like not quite funny. It's mostly terrifying. And then out of nowhere, Kilmer pops him through his pants with his Derringer like 6 times. The dude almost shoots him, and Downey's freaking out, and he's like, and he's like sitting there, and then he pulls out the gun. He's like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God you had a gun there, because I wasn't sure if it was just like a gay thing or... I died because I went from scared to like, yes, to like laughing my ass off in the span of a minute. And I was like, that's Shane Black. That is Shane Black perfectly.
And can we also talk about how delicate a line he walks with all the gay humor, but I think lands it on the right side of history?
100%. And I think like I even saw someone today, right? Like, you know, seeing Fat Kilmer now as Gay Perry would be amazing. And like, if I were to call anyone gay blank, it would be so not cool.
Right.
But then to think of him as anything other than Gay Perry it doesn't feel good.
Because it's not derogative.
No.
And they even acknowledge it in one scene, like, are you still gay? And he's like, no, I'm drowning in pussy. I just like the name so it stuck. Like they even throw a jab at the name to acknowledge it, and then like it's a term of endearment by the end.
Yes, it really I agree. I think they never go to immature or like easy humor, low-hanging fruit with the gay jokes. And if they do, they call you out on it. He calls you out on it. Exactly.
And then it's also a movie that this was in 2005, which was around the time of Brokeback Mountain, which is Brokeback Mountain came out and there were protests and like the world was a much shittier place.
Oh yeah.
Like, do you remember when Brokeback, they were like, I can't believe those guys are playing homosexual cowboys. And I was like, what's the problem?
Back then the F word, the other F word, was still in everything. Yeah, it was in movies, it was on TV. You would hear people say it in the hallway at school all the time.
Right.
It was not, it did not carry the weight that it does now. And I think there's so many ways that this movie could have been caught on the wrong side of history. Like you said, I mean, hell, when I started dating my girlfriend, I wanted to watch Wedding Crashers with her because I was like, oh my God, this movie's so funny. I saw it in high school. It's so good. And you go back and like, I'm still laughing my ass off. And we end the movie and she's like, yeah, it was kind of funny. She's like, that movie kind of sucked.
But if you find the humor now instead of finding it at the time.
Exactly. And she's like, they just made women look like dumb sluts in that whole movie. And the only 2 women that you care about in the movie are just tricked into being with these assholes. I was like,
well, when you put it like that,
Jesus,
and that's what's tricky about watching movies out of their time, and that's why I think this is a 15-year-old film that actually was progressive to a point.
Yeah,
like I'm not saying like it's the ally film,
right? You're like it was this and Brokeback. Yeah, it really paved the way.
They really changed the game. But considering this came out around the time that I remember Brokeback having so much kickback, and this had humor around it, and the fact that Shane Black is on the right side of history from 15 years ago is really impressive.
And he's the type of guy that totally could have been on the wrong side of history.
And this movie could have easily been very offensive in hindsight.
But here we are. And anyway, so that's my moment. And I just love the line because that whole gamut of emotions I went through, from like being scared to being like, fuck yeah, to just laughing my ass off all in one. I was like, this is it. This is why Coy loves this movie. This is why Shane Black is a genius. So that's my fist pump.
For me, it's the opening party because I've actually been at parties where I've
actually been to Shane's house. So I just remembered using the bathroom.
I was like,
I love
this
that
scene
bathroom.
Felt like me. And when I think about playing Harry Lockhart in an alternate reality, no, but like I remember watching watching that scene and not living in LA and being like, this is over the top. And then when I moved out here, when I realized this movie is just reality, then the rest of the movie became more real. So it's this really weird, like the grooves of reality and society. Like I fell into that groove and I was like, oh no, this is just reality. This modicum. Like it's just like, this is just what reality is like in this weird niche on the racetrack. So the party was like, it's all inside jokes. It's all jokes that are like timeless to a point. It borders on offensive, which is my kind of humor.
Yeah.
Like I love the fact that Deadpool walks the line between like pegging scenes and like flashback humor, but it's a love story.
Yeah.
And this movie has like Native American Joe Pesci jokes, but it doesn't seem offensive to me. Like it could to others, and if you are offended, I apologize if my liking it hurts you. But
you've also got the nostalgia with it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So to me, like the movie, those are all jokes, like you said, you'd say with your friends. But to me, it walks that very fine line of like, I won't regret showing this to someone in 10 years.
Yeah, which is, well, it's one of those things where there's like a lot of the jokes that you say with your friends you probably wouldn't put in a movie.
Yeah, man.
But then he found all the best jokes you tell with your friends and then put them in a movie because they would still fit.
And they're forever.
And they're forever.
Like most of the stuff I would say on like during stand-up, I would never tweet. Like, you know, if I'm going to say a bunch of jokes, I'm like, I don't want that in writing. So, and that's the thing about making a movie is like, that's permanent. That's your name. You wrote that script. Your name's on that, written by. You have to live with that.
Yeah.
So the fact that the party scene is my fist bump moment is because it's all of the things I find funny. It's naturalistic dialogue at an accelerated level. No one actually talks like Aaron Sorkin or Shane Black. No one actually, but it's so close that
we say that all the time. We're like, if you were ever with someone that talked like Aaron Sorkin, you would want them to shut the hell up within 30 seconds.
Because you're like, stop repeating,
you're
stop
like, what are you
like,
saying? Like, what? Did you just hit me with words? Why? We're just talking about your favorite coffee.
Hanging out. And why are we always walking?
Yes.
But like, it's a really specific kind of thing.
Is this the presidential? Where are we?
Have we done 3 laps down a wing? Is this the Western Wing?
Dude, the other thing I love about the beginning of the movie that I thought was super, just like it totally caught LA was the cop that busts in the audition room. Didn't you feel like that cop used to want to be an actor?
Guaranteed. And they cast like just handsome enough.
Just handsome enough.
Because if you get arrested in LA, there's a chance you're getting arrested by an ex-actor.
Yes,
like,
dude.
When you see cops out here and they're like the right kind of swole, you're like, bro, I know what happened 10 years ago.
Yep.
Like, I get it. And that's why they're so mad. LA cops are such dicks because they wanted so much more.
Especially the good-looking ones, man. They're so mad.
If you see a cop and there's a good-looking one and an ugly one, lean into the ugly one. Because they've at least got, like, they might have wanted to be a cop.
Don't call him the ugly one or her. Just
acknowledge.
lean. Yeah. No, but I love because he pops in, he's like, good luck.
Good luck.
And his face, it was so
also,
genuine.
the casting of this film is perfect. Down to the day players.
Everyone.
Every day player.
That guy, I can't remember his name, the bald guy, the one that was the casting director in that room. He's like, oh, get blank on the phone. Wallace something, I can't remember, but I love him. He's a big TV actor. Casting in this is perfect. So let's get into their profiles a little bit since that's what we're talking about. You know, we're just going to talk about Downey and Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer was doing pretty well for himself a little bit earlier than this. In the early 2000s is kind of when he fell off. Started to gain a little bit of weight. He wasn't like the leading man, beautiful sex icon that he was like in the 90s. Maybe that was just what me and my mom thought.
That's how I see him. Batman forever indeed.
God.
That man's Bruce Wayne.
I loved that movie.
Like, it's so weird to think about now.
Yeah.
It's so weird to think like Val Kilmer, Mark Twain himself, because Val Kilmer's been Mark Twain the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird to think about that man as Bruce Wayne.
My favorite line in that is, I don't know why, he has like a kind of a lisp at one point when he asked Nicole Kidman to go to the circus. He's like, excuse me, doctor, would you like to go to the circus? Go back and watch it. You'll never unhear it.
No, he's like, my Batman doesn't have a lisp, but my Bruce Wayne does. They'll never figure it out.
I've figured it out. I've found my Clark Kent glasses. So he did Mindhunters in 2004, George and the Dragon in 2004, and Alexander in 2004, which I don't really know any of those movies, honestly.
Alexander's a tough watch.
Yeah, is that what is that?
It's the Colin Farrell.
It is that Alexander. It is that. All right. I've never seen it.
Unless he did 2, because I remember that movie. I just don't know the timeline of Alexander.
Good old Colin Farrell.
They released it 3 times. There's 3 different cuts of Alexander. All of them are hard.
Is it director's extended and original or something like that?
It's the original cut. It's the original director's cut, and then he had like a final cut, like a la Blade Runner. Because Oliver Stone kept trying to be like, no, it's good.
I promise you.
But when you see the extra 40 minutes, it gets better.
Isn't that when he has sex with his sister?
Yeah. It's a lot of weird, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I remember because I was in high school at the time. And that's what everyone talked about. But also that it was just bad.
And like Colin Farrell, who I love, like one of my favorite actors working hard stop, could not save that film.
What's your favorite performance of his?
In Bruges.
Is it In Bruges?
Like,
for
his eyebrows are Oscar worthy. It's just his eyebrows.
Tied even with in Bruges and Horrible Bosses.
Oh, he's so good in Horrible Bosses.
I love him.
He's absurdly good in Horrible
chubby,
Bosses.
balding Colin Farrell is one of my
magnificent.
Seeing beautiful men in a horrible picture is amazing.
It just helps.
Like when Gosling at the end of Blue Valentine, you're like,
yeah.
See, it happens to everyone.
We all get it. It's rough. Like Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, where you're like, it can happen to you.
That's exactly what you'd look like,
and
man.
there's some freedom in that. But yeah, I feel like Colin Farrell can do no wrong. Except like Alexander's one of the 3 Colin Farrell movies I don't rewatch. So I think.
There's Tristan and Isolde. Have you seen that?
Oh, God.
I haven't seen that.
And then there's like a mafia one, like a Russian mafia film that I saw once, and I was like, why are we here?
I can't do this.
Like, it just kept going. I was like, is there something coming?
You're like, but I still like you.
But I'm still here, Colin.
Like
Man, The Gentleman is fantastic.
Oh, is it?
Dude, Guy Ritchie is one of my go-tos. Like, I was saying Shane Black and Guy Ritchie, I think, are amongst the best. And this is his return to, like, rock and roll a snatch form.
I am actually really excited to see Hugh Grant in that movie.
He's incredible.
Because I've heard he's very good, and I haven't seen him do anything in a long time.
Yeah.
And Ben and I were just talking the other day. If a couple things went a little differently for Hugh Grant, or maybe if he just wasn't in so many great rom-coms, or if he wasn't that guy, he could have just been Brosnan in Bond. And his career would have gone completely different.
Yeah.
Put on like 10 pounds of muscle. That dude was so charming.
And and at the right time too.
Yeah.
He was the right guy at the right time until the prostitute thing. But like, you know what I mean? Like that really shifted things.
Yeah.
That also changed late night television. Like Hugh Grant single-handedly changed what late night was, because he went on, I don't remember which show he went on, but the ratings in that spiked, and then that changed the nature of what late night talk shows was, because it was more about the controversy of the individual than promoting a thing.
Because that was when he went on to talk about it,
Yeah,
right?
he literally like was like, I'm going to open up about it, blah, blah, blah. Because Arsenio Hall had been running the ratings for 5 years. If you don't know Arsenio Hall, watch that. It's one of the best talk shows of all time. But when Hugh Grant came on one of the other shows, that shifted the entire landscape. So actually, when I think of Hugh Grant, I don't think of him as an actor. I think of him as the guest on a late night show that changed things.
That's crazy.
Which is the weirdest thing, because I like hosting so much. I like to me, Crispin Glover is just the guy that like almost kicked what's his name in the face.
Oh, dude,
like,
that
you know what I mean?
was it Letterman?
Letterman, yeah. I don't even think by roles anymore. I think about performances on late night.
That is one of the most uncomfortable few minutes of TV to watch.
And then
ever.
Joaquin with the gum. Like, there's so many.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's its own like universe. So Hugh Grant changed the game.
Yeah. So Robert Downey, Gothica 2003, Eros in 2004, and Game 6 in 2005. And so I want to talk about this now, because you know we were sitting down. You're like, I got to pull up Robert Downey's filmography.
Yeah.
As much as I want to talk about the stuff in the 80s, we all know he was killing it in the 80s. That's when he really made a name for himself. But then the cocaine thing happened. That was the big problem. I actually loved him in U.S. Marshals. That was one of the, because I was such a huge fan of The Fugitive. What I really want to talk about with him is the fact that he's been Iron Man for 11 years.
Yeah.
And he played an amazing Iron Man. I mean, he carried the MCU on his shoulders, which has now become the most successful film franchise, period, ever. What's going to happen with Robert Downey? Because he's still... he's going to get movies for a while, and he's still going to do Sherlock Holmes 3, which I think is really, really important for him to do.
I agree.
He just did Dolittle, which I don't know. I think it almost feels like he just owed a favor to Disney or something.
So this was actually a passion project of his.
Okay, so what the hell,
Which surprised the hell out of me. So basically, he saw a picture of a doctor, like an Eastern guru doctor in like this crazy like robe that thought he could talk to animals, and was like, I want to make Dr. Dolittle that. And like that to me is a way more interesting movie than the trailers I saw. The fact that that was a Downey Jr. movie in theaters that I haven't seen yet is exactly indicative of how the marketing was. It could be amazing, but it hasn't done that well. I haven't heard anything about it. I think maybe the trailers turn people off, because once again, the Joe Rogan interview with him is so inspiring. Yeah. He calls Kiss Kiss Bang Bang his favorite performance. He talks about like the way he shaped the career and all those things. And I think him talking about Dolittle was a better trailer than the trailers. When he had like
because the trailers were garbage.
Goddamn. But like 5 really sentences about it on there, I was like, that movie sounds fascinating. And then the trailers are like, that's not it. So he's got that just happened. He's rumored to be in Black Widow, but we all know he won't have a big part in that movie. And then he's got Sherlock Holmes 3 in pre-production, and then this is Untitled John Brinkley biopic by Richard Linklater. And I love Linklater, and they work together great in Skinner Darkly.
Exactly. So I think that is the huge moment for Downey. I think he needs to play a role that makes you forget about Iron Man, because by the time it'll come out, it'll be a couple years, right? Since he played Iron Man. Just long enough for us to maybe be like, all right, I can see you as someone else. Do you think Downey's career is in trouble?
As ex-host of Marvel Movie News, I'd like to say I'd prefer him not to be in Black Widow, because I like Downey Jr. I like Robert Downey Jr. as much as I like the MCU. So I would prefer to have both.
I think I completely agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want one to cost me the other. And I would argue Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a better performance than he could keep doing with Iron Man, because he's completed the arc. Not because it's not a great role. Like, Tony Stark has completed the arc, so I don't want to see it continue on in a way that disparages the arc he's had.
Right.
So, like, to me, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is its own baby, and I'd rather see him do more roles like that so I can give some distance to it.
I think that this may be the best acting that Robert Downey's ever done.
And it's so different than Iron Man.
It totally is. Now, I think that Downey accomplished more as an actor with Iron Man because, let's say you take the supercut of Iron Man in Iron Man 2008 all the way up to when he snaps his fingers, you're like, oh my God, the journey, the arc, the moments, the highs, the lows. You're like, that's
20 hours.
20 hours, right. Give me that an hour and a half, hour 45. I think this movie's just around 2.
Yeah.
He does so much in this movie, and it's all confined into one role as opposed to like 10 movies. I think this is his best acting. Period.
I think so.
I really do.
And
even in the beginning, even the audition is like, it's good.
And his chemistry is great with both Michelle Monaghan and Val Kilmer. His chemistry is great with every time he has to do a different type of performance. And he's as incredible as Tony Stark. I'm not taking away any of that. But since we have so much more knowledge of Tony Stark, it's harder to separate. But when I watch this, sometimes an actor becomes that role forever.
Yeah.
I don't see Tony Stark and Harry Lockhart at all.
Okay.
When I rewatch it, there's
fair.
not a part of me that's like, oh, right, he's Iron Man. Like, it's not. Because he's so commanding in this.
Yeah. And he's commanding this in such a different way. Because as Iron Man, he is, walks in the room, puts his dick on the table for everything, right?
Yeah.
It's just all ego, all confidence, just exuding at all times, except for in very few moments. Like right when he comes back at the beginning of Endgame, you're like, wow, there's a broken Iron Man, But in this movie, he just plays a dude.
He also plays like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, I also love his childlike innocence throughout this film. He's a guy doing things for his family, but he's also a kid. Like, he's burglaring a store, but while he's burglarizing, he's like, whoa! Like, there's a childlike innocence to his negative, and I think that's why he's so endearing. Like, this character shouldn't be as likable. He fails up, and usually we don't like to see that.
Yeah, because, even in the beginning when he breaks down and is crying the audition, you believe it because he feels like a kid, and that carries on all the way to the moment when he's just about to hook up with the girl of his dreams, and then he finds out that she slept with his best friend like 20 years ago, and he kicks her out.
He's out.
I'm like, you dumbass.
And you believe it, and you believe
100%,
and you also understand why he does it.
You're like, I get it. I get you, bro.
What was his name? Like Shet? Like
it's like the worst name.
And like the scene with the spider, there's so many moments that are just so endearing.
Like, oh no.
Trust me.
She's like, it's fine. You're filling me up. And she's like,
no. And that's also more LA shit. Like, also,
right?
There's so many scenes where he's describing how shitty LA can be that I'm like,
Yep.
And it's so beautiful because once again, it's on the right side of history where some of the things he said could border on misogynistic, but when you get to the point of what he's saying, it's so pro-woman.
Yes.
Like, there's so many lines I'm like, bro,
because he's not just going to hit you in the face with it. He wants you to look at what's happening,
right,
and analyze the fact that she's this girl that's passed out, and she's like, whatever, it's fine, it happens all the time, that's
right.
Basically what she says is like, we've been conditioned to think that that's acceptable,
right,
and you're watching, you're like, that's fucked.
The anti-wedding crashers.
Yes. The anti-wedding. What I mean? I know what I'm watching tonight.
There it is.
Baby, I got something to watch.
We're throwing this movie back in. But like, to me, that's really indicative of Shane Black's worldview. Like, he actually sees, like, he wants the progress to be made, and even in the moments of earnestness for Downey, it really shapes Michelle Monaghan's character. And Michelle Monaghan's character is super fleshed out.
Yeah.
Like, she has a lot going on. You understand why she makes all the choices she does.
Yeah.
And if you look at everyone's screen time, it's only a 2-hour film, but everyone has full and complete arcs. Like, everyone goes through some shit.
Yeah.
And that's masterful writing.
It really is. It really is. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the writing for Kiss Kiss. So it was originally titled "You'll Never Die in This Town Again," which was rejected by various studios before Joel Silver gave Black his first break, originally with Lethal Weapon and The Last Boy Scout. He decided to help him out in the leading role, as we talked about before, Johnny Knoxville, Benicio del Toro, and Hugh Grant. Downey found out about the role from his then girlfriend, Susan Levin, who worked as Silver's assistant, which is funny because Ethan Irwin has worked with Joel Silver for a very, very long time, and I'm sure he produced this movie. Ethan's a great dude, and it's funny because I think we were actually planning on bringing him on for this movie, and because Ben loves this movie too, and I was like, Coy wants to do it, I'm doing it with Coy. You're in Germany.
It's happening.
Sorry. So here we are.
Sorry, Ethan. We'll talk about it again. Come back on.
Yeah, I would love to. So Downey was eventually cast in this as they liked his readings. They knew he could fit into the small $15 million budget, which is hilarious.
It's less than he gets paid now.
Think about 15 years ago, and Downey's like cheap. You're like, $15 million for the whole movie?
Guy.
No problem. Now it's like $250 million contract. Sign it and make it happen. You give me for 7 minutes a day.
Right. Like, literally, can you buy me the island first? I don't want to do the paperwork.
Yes.
Like, I get paid in the islands now.
It's so
amazing. And
like
$15 million was like, okay, we can schedule him in.
We can fit Downey in. He's cheap. He's whoever right now. He needs help.
Before we leave the Downey Jr., like, the movies that follow this are really important. So we talked about the ones that came right before. after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I want to point out A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, A Scanner Darkly, and Zodiac were what followed.
Yeah.
So he's immediately turning his stuff around. He then did Charlie Bartlett the year before Iron Man, and then Tropic Thunder the year Iron Man came out.
Yeah, Charlie Bartlett, he's like the principal, and he's
good.
really good in
Anton
that.
Yelchin, I miss you, Anton.
I know, I do too.
That movie is just so charming and lovely, but like if you look at what this movie gave him, when we listed the 3 movies before it, Gothica, Eros, and Game 6, it's like, what do we talk about of any of those?
Nothing.
But if you look at the movies after this, we actually still talk about A Guide to Recognize Your Saints, A Scanner Darkly, and Zodiac constantly.
People now have argued that Zodiac's the greatest thing Fincher ever did, and,
a hell of a thing.
And everyone is incredible in that movie, not just Downey.
So it's a testament for me. That's a testament to like what I like. People are going to be mad at my MCU statement, but if you look at Kiss Kiss, this reshaped not just Downey but cinema.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can't have if the last thing that he did was get arrested for cocaine possession, he's not Iron Man.
Right.
He needs to have a few years of putting in good work, and not work where he's the lead character. Like when you think about Zodiac, you think about Gyllenhaal, and you think about Ruffalo, right? You don't just think about just Downey. You think about all 3 of them, which is good. And that's the other thing with Tom Cruise playing Iron Man. When Tom Cruise is in a movie, he wants you to think about just him.
It's a Tom Cruise film.
And you need people to think about the whole picture.
It would have been much more Mission Impossible based, and you don't see that spin-offs working because they tried that with Jeremy Renner and it didn't go anywhere.
It sure did not.
And that's why the MCU would be different. Like it'd be Marvel films.
Right, because now it'd be like, oh, they're doing a Black Widow movie and Iron Man's not in it, and they'd be like, who cares? Tom Cruise isn't in it.
He just doesn't have time.
Yeah.
And also with the and this is not to say one's better than the other, but like I like that the DC films are a little more separate. I feel like the Marvel films would have just gone that way if we didn't have Downey Jr. and that cohesiveness.
So looking at the box office here, this was produced by Warner Brothers for $15 million. It was released in October of 2005. It made $4 million domestic and an additional $11 million for a grand total of 15.8. So congratulations, you made $800,000, Joel. Good thing you didn't shoot in a different mansion.
Yep,
because
that would have been just
that would have been
budget.
it. Yep, that would have been it. It opened number 37 at the box office at $180,000, which is just so crazy. But the movie itself has a 7.5 on IMDb, and 85% on the tomato meter, and an 87% by the audience. People love this movie.
Yeah.
They really do. I just think that they didn't have superstars in it when it came out.
Can you even imagine something opening at 37 right now? Like we don't even talk about those
be
things
on the show.
We don't even mention the 37th. Like the top 10 is barely like we barely get to the 10th spot,
Right.
and that's usually movies that have been out for 3 weeks. The number 37 opener, and this is we've both argued the number 1 action comedy of all time.
I mean, it really is fantastic. Like, I think MacGruber will always be my favorite just because of how absurd it is, but that movie never feels like a real action movie. It doesn't feel like there's really ever stakes in it, whereas this movie does.
And to me, In Bruges is more of a drama comedy. So
Yeah.
like there are action
Yeah.
scenes, but like if we're saying action comedy, I think this, and then right there.
Yeah, because there's great. I rewound and watched a couple action scenes in this movie again because I was like, those are actually really sweet.
Yeah,
they really are.
And it's his debut. What a directorial debut.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about Shane's writing a lot, but without the tone he set because of his love of dime store novels, without the studio letting him make a really weird movie, like this was a live action Emperor Cusco pause the frame moment. Like that doesn't happen in movies. You don't let your lead do that. And then the subject matter is so inside baseball. That's why it opened at number 37. Like the directing style is very Shane, and it's forced perspective. Like the movie doesn't let you like play. You're like, this is what you're watching, this is where it is, and that's a very specific style of Shane's.
And that's the reason why you were telling me that they thought, or that you thought Predator struggled. Everyone thought Predator struggled, but the reason behind that is that he didn't have 100% creative control.
I feel like Shane didn't get to direct that movie.
I don't either.
Because it didn't feel like a Shane Black film.
Not at all, because when you go and you watch the other movies that he's directed, you're like, yeah, that's him.
And there's like 3 Shane Black scenes,
Right,
and those scenes are fun because you're like, oh, this is the time he got to play.
Yeah.
Like when they're sitting in the car and they're all like riffing, and you finally see that all the like the badass like criminals are about to do. Like I'm like, oh, the Shane Black scene.
Right.
And then that makes it even worse when they leave that scene because you're like, oh, we're back to this movie.
Here we go.
And like I don't blame him at all. Like I still see him as like a near perfect filmography. To me it's like Alien 3 with David Fincher.
Yeah.
I don't count that as a Fincher film.
It's not.
Because like that was a studio going like, we got this music video director. He'll show up sometimes, and then they're both like,
I watched Alien 3 last week.
Don't do that.
It was so bad. It was so goddamn bad. I was sitting there and I kept rewinding the end of it because I was like, if I ever get asked about how this movie ended in the Schmodown, they would never ask how this movie ends in the Schmodown because it makes no goddamn sense.
The whole movie doesn't make sense.
The
Prison planet. Like what is going on throughout that film?
Why not just not have that planet?
Yeah, it's like when they bring the kids back to Jurassic World 2. I'm like, it's an exploding dinosaur planet. Bring the kids.
Bring the kids.
Like, why would they
It'd be
go to
sweet.
this? It's like, what is this choice? But I felt the same way about Predator. It was like they kept throwing in like he had these big broad ideas, and then it was like the studio's like, but what if there's this thing?
What if there's a predator?
Yeah, and they're like, what if there's 19 predators and one of them's kind of humanish? Like, it just felt like that 90s thing.
Yeah,
where they were just like mixing a human hybrid.
Like more, not better, just more.
And that's not Shane Black. If arguably he'd rather have more punchy dialogue than set pieces, so it just kept derailing that.
Well, we always say on the show, it's the moments in between the action that hold a movie together, and this is a perfect testament to that statement. Favorite line? What's your favorite line, man?
I saved it here because I want to get it exactly right. This is the movie, brilliantly founded on dialogue, and arguably you could grab any line from this film, and I'd say it's my favorite.
You really can.
But what talking money? A talking monkey? Talking monkey? Yeah. Came here from the future. Ugly sucker. Only says ficus. It is such a fast line. It doesn't make any sense in or out of context.
Wait, what did that just say?
And it comes at you like an Eminem line. Like you sit there, you're like, what just happened to me? Ugly sucker only says ficus, talking monkey. That to me is the epitome of the whole movie. Like it's all of the sass of Gay Perry.
Yep.
It's Harry Lockhart being confused and being a young child, and it's an irreverent reference that sounds like it should be referencing something you know but doesn't.
Right.
Like, it sounds like it should be like a pop culture reference, but it's just insanity. So to me, the crazy ugly sucker only says ficus is
so good. I don't know where this came, but it just reminded me of how funny I thought it was when they shot the girl in the head in the trunk. That was all.
Do you think she's okay? No, she's just napping. Of course she's dead. Her neck's broken. Or the whole scene where he's peeing on the body. Where he's just peeing and he looks
like,
over.
I didn't pee on
and
it.
He's like, some of my DNA's on it. I peed on her.
What? He's like, why in your right mind would you ever pee? He's like, I didn't mean to.
That whole sequence. Or when he throws the gun, he's like, what happens when they drag the leg and they find my custom like that?
For my
You can grab any scene and pull a line from it, and it's a better line than the best line in most movies.
Yeah.
It's a perfect script.
And my favorite line is, I love callbacks in movies. I 100% love callbacks. And Perry says, go, sleep badly. Any questions, hesitate to call. And he goes, bad. Perry goes, excuse me? Sleep bad. Otherwise, it seems like the mechanism that allows you to sleep. What? Fuckhead? Badly's an adverb. Who taught you grammar? Get out. Vanish. I died, dude. I actually fell out of my chair laughing at that line.
Vanish is such a good insult.
It's so
insult. Cutting. Like, all of it's funny, and then it ends with vanish. Like, stop existing around me.
Like, I just love how quick, because I don't know if you because you probably write a lot more than I do. My grammar's gotten horrible as I've gotten older. Like, the rules of grammar.
Because we text.
We text.
We used to have to write.
Yes.
In what scenario, one, is handwriting a thing, or two, even writing in a way that needs to be done.
Never.
Like, when I have to write for a company instead of speak, I'm like, I hope you have an editor and a second editor.
My girlfriend's getting her doctorate right now in policy analysis. She looks at anything that I write and she's like, what is wrong? Who wrote this? And I'm like, I did it really quick without looking.
And it's like 6 hours. You've been struggling and you've reread it 4 times.
I love how quickly he's just like, what? Fuckhead, badly is an adverb. And in my mind, I was like, I don't even know what adverbs are anymore. Those are things that describe
they have an
action, right?
Dude, and I read back my text and I'm like, I hope my friends know that I'm not just dumb. When I read back my own text, I'm like, how did you know what I meant? Because I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I've left English behind a long time ago.
100%.
The fact that I have a career talking is just a gift. Like, it's not English.
Same. The fact that I can talk is great.
If I had a
cannot write.
Like, imagine if we had professional stenographers following us around, you read back, playback for the day, and you're
they would kick our ass at the end of every day.
Like, yeah.
I also love the at the very end when he's like, no, and then he shoots the dude, and then he rolls, and he shoots the other dude, and then he's like, okay, all done. And I just clean fun. Might be what I'd say if I ever got in a shootout.
And there's so many moments that, like, once again, the heightened reality, where it could almost work in reality.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
All right, so we got a really quick question. I'm actually just going to have you answer it because I don't know if we have time for both of us, but it says, would you prefer a sequel to Kiss? This is from Ian Kelly on Instagram.
Okay.
Run by our friend Richard Eric Jarvie. We run a competition every weekend where people can submit their AMA questions. And he says, would you prefer a sequel to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or The Nice Guys? Pitch a potential sequel of your choice. Older, fatter Kilmer as Gay Perry would be fantastic, says Ian.
I would say a sequel to this only because I feel like The Nice Guys was already a pseudo sequel to this. Like, I felt like it was a spiritual sequel. You know, when you watch those movies, you're like, that's the same universe. Whereas I can't imagine the glory of, like, Downey Jr. with the pull he has now. And I also kind of want, as a legacy movie, I want people to go back and watch this.
Yeah.
And I feel like they don't. Like, I feel like if we did a sequel to this, people would discover this really important movie.
100%.
Whereas The Nice Guys doing better, I feel like it's kind of better. Like, it was better off. Like, it was Gosling and Russell at the height of their powers, or, like, maybe not Russell Crowe, but like, post Gladiator Russell Crowe, like that level. So it did well.
He was still a superstar.
This opened at number 37. It needs our attention. I would say this.
I would love to see a sequel with the same characters. All three of them.
All of them.
All of them are still fine. They're all still acting. They're all still phenomenal.
They're also brilliant. And they all work very well.
They really do.
Like consistently, they haven't had those foibles.
And Shane Black write and direct it.
He's ready.
I'm already in.
And I would say the plot would be I've always wanted to see a movie dive into the underbelly of LA, whereas this dives into the underbelly of the parties in LA. There was a rumor that True Detective season 2 was going to be about how LA killed the electric car. I would love if there was something of that scale and scope where, like, for some reason Harry Lockhart fell into some sort of like problem where he had to solve the public transportation crisis. Because like someone that it's like he's way underqualified and Gay Perry's just got to like keep him alive. Because like the train system and all the things in LA are because there's a lot of money in cars. Yeah. Like there's a reason this city is gridlocked.
Whereas you go anywhere else,
they have a
New York, Tokyo, China.
For some reason, Harry Lockhart's the only guy that can solve the mystery.
So, and I gotta take care of this.
Like imagine watching him like fumble his way through the greatest controversy of LA.
Coy, there are 3 action movie categories: totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, and ridiculously legitimate. What is this movie?
Ridiculously legitimate.
100%.
It is legit through and through, and it's also ridiculous. It's the exact dialogue we've been talking about.
I love. He spins the gun. He's like,
it's an 8% chance.
It's 8%. What the? Who taught you math? Like later on, he's still trying to do the math. It's like just
until the next scene, and he like has to stop him. It's just 1 out of 8% chance. This movie is so funny. It literally knocked me off my chair from memory. I just remembered this moment and I couldn't hang. Oh, man.
Oh, my God. All right. There's only one thing left to do on the show, and that's called The Pitch. We don't know what movie we're covering next week, so we'll get back to you guys on that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. A big shout out to some generals out there. General Andrew Hayes, John Patterson, Kelsey Kirkland, Jeremiah Morris, Cody Seal, AJ Lancaster, Saudi Lamanmaki, Oscar Romo, Danny Joyce, Eric Ritz, Luke Haynes, Michael Deacon, Liam Gilpin, and, oh my God, Kyle. Kyle's a new general. Oh no, I have to do this. I know this is so professional. This is exactly while
you're looking up, Can I say we met a lot of these people in New York?
Yes.
And I want to give a shout out for meeting them in 3D because it's so cool to see names and then to meet the person and realize they're really rad.
Aren't they all amazing?
Like they're just incredible people. And that's so unique.
They are like, we joke because we do these things called general bunkers where we hang out with them on hangouts before we go live on shows. I talk to them more than I do my family.
It's amazing.
And they're amazing people.
And a lot of them are so nice that I thought it was fake. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you talk to someone online, you're like, that's not. And then I met them, I was like, God, they're just great.
And then you meet their partners and you're like, oh my God, of course you found the nicest person
the best
ever.
duo I've seen.
Yeah.
And like so many times people have offered help and I'm not a guy to like accept help and then in person they're like, I meant it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I thought it was just you being nice.
Take them up
they're
on
just
it.
Incredible.
They will change your life like they did ours.
Seriously, all of you guys I appreciate it from having just met you.
Yeah, and Carl Newell is the newest general, and then 5-star generals Mac Ryan, John Getz, Jake Yakubeta, Lucas Shashek, Alex Shashek, and Paul Denuzio. Guys, thank you so very much. Big time salute. Thanks for coming, man. This was so much fun.
The live chat is
you fell out of your chair.
I literally fell out of my chair laughing.
This episode
That's how much I enjoy this show.
I love it.
And Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. We literally yelled about this in New York, and now it happened.
See you guys next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.